This country is the United Arab Emirates, and I want you to know all about it. How it's opening itself up to the world as a tourist destination, a center for finance, and much more. The essence of the UAE is its global ambition. It wants to be more than just a regional power. This ambition is the driving force behind all of its actions. But how did this small country rise from obscurity to prosperity? And how will it achieve its ambitious goals? This is the story of the United Arab Emirates and its quest for global power. The British once held what we know today as the United Arab Emirates as a protectorate, but by 1971, their ability to protect their possessions became untenable. The British Treaty of Protection expired on December 2, 1971, and 6 of the Emirates agreed to form a union. Ras Al Khaimah would join next year, and out of many sheikdoms, the United Arab Emirates was born. Proximity to Saudi Arabia and Iran, the UAE was immediately subject to the whims of these two regional powers. But the country's first president, Zayed bin Sultan, was able to balance the two powers against each other. He carefully navigated an increasingly dangerous neighborhood, and he maintained a policy of neutrality in the region, not getting involved in the Iran-Iraq war, for example. But a post-9/11 world would not allow for that neutral stance anymore. The attacks compelled the UAE to be more aggressive, especially because 2 of the hijackers were Emirati citizens. The UAE would embark on a path to rid itself of radical Islamic influence and embrace a secular model of governance. These decisions would also push the UAE to form a closer relationship with the United States and fight in Afghanistan with coalition forces. This had the added benefit of giving the UAE military experience, putting it on the path to becoming a capable military power. A decade later, the Arab Spring engulfed the region in pro-democracy protests. The UAE was becoming increasingly skeptical as it emerged from the Arab Spring in 2011 intact, and Egypt helped shape its new worldview. The UAE looked to events in Egypt as a source of skepticism for its US relationship. When the Muslim Brotherhood politician Mohamed Morsi won the election in Egypt in 2012, the UAE helped overthrow him in a military coup. What shocked the UAE was the US not defending Morsi's predecessor, Hosni Mubarak, a long-standing US ally. This made the UAE truly consider just how committed was the US to Middle East security. And when President Obama failed to enforce his red lines on chemical weapon usage in Syria, this only solidified the UAE's skepticism into full-blown policy change. The UAE began nothing short of a paradigm shift in its worldview. No longer should it be confined to one part of the world, but rather diversify its political partnerships to all parts of the world. It would begin forging economic ties with China, the emerging economic superpower. The UAE had a lot going for it since the Arab Spring and its fallout. More than a decade later, it survived intact, and now it is outlandishly wealthy, has substantial oil and gas reserves, and has become a hub for finance. When you hear the word Dubai, you think of luxury, wealth, and iconic landmarks such as the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. This is all by design. The UAE has marketed itself as an attractive tourist destination. Most important perhaps is its secular model of government, for it has allowed it to grow and prosper and not be devoured by radical ideologies. Look no further than to Iran for an example of radicalism inhibiting a country's growth. In 2020, the UAE alongside Bahrain signed the Abraham Accords, which normalized ties with Israel. This was a historic moment for the region and between Arab states and Israel, beginning the process of mending of ties. The UAE also benefited by establishing economic, commercial, and technological ties between the two countries. The Emirates have also established strong economic ties with emerging middle powers, such as Brazil, India, and Indonesia. But for all the progress the region was experiencing, it was all halted by the October 7th attacks by Hamas in Israel and the subsequent year of escalation. Israel now not only faces Hamas in Gaza, but the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and increasingly a dangerous game of escalation with Iran that could leave the region in flames. This is the first limitation for the UAE, regional instability. Despite the ongoing war, the UAE has not stopped in its economic and diplomatic relationship with Israel. Of course, there are other things, such as its reliance on oil and gas and increasing pressures to decarbonize. Then you have the possibility of collapse from the inside. The UAE is ruled by a family. For now, there is unity, but in the future, there might be competition from within, which could lead to infighting and surrounding powers capitalizing on this instability. More presently, you have the challenge from Saudi Arabia. which shares many similar features with the UAE. Both are rich from oil, ruled by families, and by men who wish to see themselves as paramount in the region. Mohammed bin Zayed from the United Arab Emirates, and Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia. MBS wishes to make his country the political and economic heavyweight of the Middle East. He's doing things such as diversifying its economy, transforming itself into a hub for finance and tourism. Regardless of these external players, the UAE has two problems complicating its rise: physical limitations and regional instability. No matter what the UAE does, it will never have the pool of resources available to its much larger counterparts, such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, or Turkey. It can punch above its weight through the economic sphere, but even then, it will be dwarfed by its neighbors. It cannot escape its physical limitations. By trying to stand out and punch above its weight, the UAE has essentially become a transactional state, ready to cut deals with whoever and working outside of the orthodoxy in its region. And the UAE might be getting a special opportunity with the change in president next year who shares the UAE's outlook of making deals in the short term. But in its quest to become a global player, it cannot make the fatal mistake of ignoring its own region. Whether the UAE becomes a global power or not doesn't matter in the end. What good is global ambition if the survival of your own state is at risk? No matter how high it aims, the UAE will be held down by a region ready to explode. It must first come face to face with this reality before it can begin to project power like, say, Singapore. What matters is staying alive, for in its own neighborhood lurk dangerous enemies willing and ready to strike when the time is right. And especially when the region is on the brink of an all-out war, the UAE must be ready to do what it must to survive.